All right. So let's see what's going on over here. Oh boy. It says here, what do women really want? I've finally discovered the big secret. Was it a secret? If anybody talks about what they want all the time, it's women. I don't know why you would be confused. I know a man who's not handsome, intelligent, or charming. Does he have money? How do you know he's not charming? And he's not rich. Okay, he's not rich, funny, or famous. What do you know? You know, a blank slate? Like the dude's got to be something. And yet women find him irresistible. Are you sure about that? I've always found his appeal a complete mystery. So I once asked him for the secret of his success. And this is what he told me. I ask women questions about themselves. And more importantly, I listen to their answers. What? So you have a conversation with them. That was the secret? Homie he couldn't figure out to have a conversation with a woman. If you, all right. My first reaction to this was, what? Ask questions and listen. Oh, wow. He really is a dumbass. That's the big secret? That's not a secret. Obviously, talk to them. Asking questions and listening to the responses is basic. Even Freud couldn't answer the question. Amazing. What do women want? So has my friend finally cracked that great mystery? That's absurd, you might think, but talking to my women friends, I realize he might be onto something. He's not. He really isn't. Like, it's not a secret that women love to have conversations, especially when it's about themselves. Like, most men know that. Like, it's not. That man may lack sufficient status and sex appeal to attract women, that he has something that is very attractive, curiosity. Okay. Curiosity is an aphrodisiac, and it's what drives good conversation, and good conversation generates romantic interest. For like the first couple of dates, but what happens when she now turns around and asks him questions about himself? And he's just like, well, I'm not funny. I'm not charming. I don't have money. Uh, I ask a lot of questions to women, and like what? The, I don't know why in people's efforts to compliment women, they just seem to make them seem stupid. You're not just gonna get a woman just by asking her questions about herself. Like, sure, women do love talking about themselves and yapping all day, but eventually they're gonna be like, "What about you? Do you do anything interesting? Do you have anything funny or intelligent to say?" Like, I've noticed that when dating experts give their top 10 dating tips, they always mention being charming. Well, that's just vague. I mean, some people find losers charming. It's charming how incompetent they are. Intelligent? Oh, just be intelligent. Okay. Funny. Ooh, right. Showing good manners, etc. But they never mention being curious. That's part of being charming, you. Charm is just simply having that social awareness to be able to navigate a conversation and make it interesting. So, yes, you have to be curious about the other person. You have to ask them questions and answer questions, carry a conversation. And by curiosity, I mean a real deep interest in the person you're talking to. But what if you don't have a deep interest in the person you're talking to? then you're faking it, which is going to be most of the time because most people have the same goddamn story. Because we're all humans and we pretty much navigate life the same way. The only small differences are in what's the name of our family members or what particular trauma or whatever the hell. But you still sit on the toilet like anybody else. You put food in your mouth like everybody else. You go to work to get money like everybody. Like it's we're pretty much living the same lives. An interest that goes beyond the surface of pleasantries of polite chit chat and leads to kind intimacy without intrusiveness. What the? That is the goal of anybody that dates somebody. But you still got to start with the surface level stuff to break the ice. Hence the curiosity and the asking questions about themselves so that you can see where the conversations go from there. Are they comfortable talking to you? Do they enjoy talking to you? Are they curious about you to show some sort of interest as well, mutual interest? That is the point of the surface level, pleasant conversation, polite chat. The intrusive, intimate stuff comes later. And hopefully that person will be curious about you. God damn it. Now ask yourself this: how often does that actually happen? In social situations, are you the one who has to keep asking questions to keep the conversations going? Probably because you're bored. Or is it usually the other person? If your answer is that you're never really thought about it, then you're probably one of those people who are never curious about other people. Or maybe you're just not a person that's constantly analyzing their social interactions. You know, like a crazy person. I meet people like this all the time at parties. You ask them about this and you ask them about that, and you keep asking and asking and expecting the moment they will reciprocate and ask you something in return. Why would they do that? If a stranger comes up to me and just asks me questions about myself, I'm immediately on the defensive. If you ask somebody a question as an icebreaker, and then you just go into the conversation natural, you say a little bit about yourself, you say something, you ask them about themselves, you say something about yourself, you carry you lead the conversation into a pleasant thing, and you have a little banter back and forth. That's fine. People are going to get curious about you. You're like, oh, this is kind of pleasant talking to this person. I wonder who they are. That's how they get curious, because you have charm. But if you lack charm and you're just a goddamn interrogator, then no shit, people aren't going to ask you about yourself in return. They're going to be like, what the hell is going on? Either they want you to get away from them, or they're going to be like, what is this about? Or whatever. They're going to be defensive. It's like socially inept people learning for the first time that there's actually a certain sort of way that you have to conduct yourself in human society. And lo and behold, it doesn't happen. What's so upsetting is that they don't even pretend to be interested in you. Why would they? They don't care about you. You're not a friend. You're not a friend of a friend. You're nobody. You're just a random person that just walked up to them, started asking them questions. This is an experience a lot of my single women friends have suffered. So your single women friends goes up to someone that they're interested in, and they just ask them a bunch of questions about themselves. And that person just keep talking about themselves. And then what? And then they just let the conversation drop, hoping that the person would ask them similar questions. It just, what you've identified is that your single female friends, they have no game. They're not charming. They're not funny. They're not interesting. just like you said in the beginning. They complain that when it comes to conversation, they have to make all the running. Okay? What's wrong with these men, my friend Kate asked. You sit there doing your best to keep the conversation going, asking about their work, their interests, their children, their ex-wives. I remember one date whose only question to me was, shall we split the bill? Yeah, you weren't interesting. If someone's going on a date, the last thing they want to talk about is the stressful parts of their lives. You ask them about work. I'm like, well, I don't really want to think about work, but okay. So she wants to know what I do for work. She wanted to know if I have money. Okay, I do have a good job, whatever. You kind of you go through the motion. It's like, okay, what your interests are? You're like, I don't know. You think about it, like, I gotta. I mean, you have to come up with an interest that you think she would find interesting. So you say something random, and then you like your children. Oh yeah, my kids. Shit, I'm on a date right now. I don't want to think. They're fine. Like, oh yeah, I have two. Like, whatever. You say something about your kids, and you're like the ex-wives, and you're like, bruh. So we split the bill. That's him pretty much saying, I'm not interested. Otherwise, if he was interested, he would pay the whole thing. He's just like, I'm not gonna pay the full amount for you to waste my goddamn time. But this isn't another complaint about the bad manners of the modern narcissist men. How's that narcissistic? You go up to someone and ask them a bunch of questions about themselves that they didn't really want to answer, and they went through the motions with you, and they weren't interested in you, and that makes him a narcissist. Like, people just blow my mind with the nonsense they throw out. There's a point in life where you have to realize that the problem is sometimes just you. Just because people didn't react to you the way you want them to doesn't mean that there's something wrong with them. Women do it too. Women do what too? Don't ask other people questions about themselves. Women are entitled to also not be interested. Like, I don't like, doesn't make him a narcissist. I've sat patiently and listened to long stretches of time as women have talked about their brilliant children, their boorish exes, their sexual dissatisfactions, and their career dreams, and not one question in return. Yeah, what about it? What about it? If someone goes into a conversation, say a woman's going to a conversation with someone, and she starts talking, and she's telling all these things about her exes and all this stuff, and the other person is not interrupting or not adding anything, not even diverting the conversation to another, yeah, like, what the hell is she supposed to do except just keep talking about herself? Because she didn't have anything planned for what to say. She doesn't know how this is gonna go, so she just like, I'll just ramble until he stops me. Like, she doesn't make her a narcissist, man. Like, sometimes talking to people is just hard, and the people that are good at it are people I don't trust. Like, they're they're manipulators, con men. Like, I once went on a date with an American who talked about her art and her love life for an entire evening. That is from 6:30 to 11:45. Yes, I timed it. Okay. She talked about her art. Okay. And her life for an entire evening. What did you say in between that? Did you talk? I don't like, people can't keep talking about things unless they think you're like interested in hearing it at some point. Otherwise, they'll just be like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm boring you with this. Like, some part of that is your responsibility as the audience. At the end of the evening, after I'd paid the bill, she said, next time we will talk about you, I promise. Yeah. She thought you were just being nice and a good listener because you didn't interrupt the. It's like you expect the other person to do both parts, right? You expect them to not only be engaging and speak, but also interpret whether or not you want to talk as well. You have to say some things. You have to give them information so they know what to talk about and what to say, or whether or not you're interested in hearing this or you're interested in talking about something else. Like you have to feed the conversation as well. You can't just let them go and then just be like, oh man, when is this person going to see something that I want to talk about? Oh boy. Like you're a weirdo. Sometimes I practice what I call the gap trap. I stop asking questions and let the conversation lapse into silence, thinking that may nudge the other person into asking me something about me. Think about this. How about having empathy, right? Imagine you go on a date with someone, you start the conversation. The person asks you about yourself, you're just answering the questions. The entire time, this person is pretty much just a mute, listening, boring individual. Are you curious about this boring person? Or do you just think something's wrong here? Do you just think, okay, either they're really nice and uninteresting, or or this person really just have nothing to talk about? That's what they would assume. They would assume that about you. Otherwise, you make yourself seem interesting. Because that's the point. When someone says they're not curious, they're just being lazy. No, they're not. They're just not curious. Like, what are you talking about? If I was curious about something, I'm not, no one is like lazy enough to not try to satisfy their curiosity. Like, that's just weird. The person feels obliged to ask you something about yourself, but they don't really know what to ask you because they're just not interested. Yeah, they're not interested. You didn't seem interesting. That's your job. So you end up having to ask questions, ask yourself the questions they should be asking. I guess whatever you need to do, or you could just be interesting. Yes, asking questions to conduct a conversation may sound like some sort of intense police interrogation, or anxiety-inducing job interview. I've had dates say to me, "Why are you asking me so many questions? You're a weirdo. Why do you ask so many questions?" But the answer is obvious: because I'm interested in finding out about you. And furthermore, if I didn't make the effort, we'd both be sitting here in silence. Well, that's condescending and shit. And also, it's weird to ask that many questions, especially on a first date. You don't even know if you're going to date this person and they know all about your goddamn life. Like, that's weird. Even it's scarier than an interrogation because it's just a random person out in the world that know your personal information, and they're probably gonna talk about you to their friends or whatever. And like, I had this date and he's this and he's that and he had this. Like now, all your personal information is just out there now, and you're going to have more dates, and it's going to be like that, and it's going to be a bunch of people that you're not dating that know personal stuff about you. Like people are entitled to be like, what the hell is going on? If everyone is like this these days, funny thing is that there are people who are interested in talking about you. They're called celebrities. The hell, I know it sounds odd, but really famous people are curious about people who aren't famous. I met Robert De Niro at a party, and all he wanted to talk about was me. It's because he probably knows everything about himself. And when I met Madonna, this was some years ago, all she did was ply me with questions about me. Okay. Keanu Reeves is the most beloved celebrity in the world because he's good at talking to people about themselves. Most of those people are actors. And also, if they're at the party, what else they're gonna do if you walk up to them? Like, what else are they gonna do? Pull their phone out and be rude so you can tell people stories about how rude they were? So what is going on? It's we seem to be losing the art of conversation. You are. The art was founded on a simple social contract. No, 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 no. No. Conversation is not a professional art unless you're a professional conversationalist. Conversation is just something that we do in order to communicate with each other. All right. And we get better at it as we get older because we have more practice. The reason that a lot of people aren't good at it is because they have small social circles, especially in big cities. People have very small social circles. They have their work friends, their actual friends, and they have specific ways they talk to these people because these people already either know them or they see them all the time. So they don't build up conversation styles for strangers. They just don't. They don't have it because they're used to just like avoiding strangers. Like you're used to not showing interest in strangers and just completely ignoring them. You're gonna carry that on to the point where now you have to engage with a stranger just to get a date. So now it's like weird. You don't know what to say. You don't even know how to engage. You feel like you're a goddamn kid again. So to be a good conversationalist, you have to have that empathy and understand why it might be difficult for the other person. And just if you just make that little bit of effort, right, to sort of just like guide them along and until they get their bearings in the conversation is going to pick up, it's going to go somewhere. You know what I mean? They're going to relax, they're going to feel comfortable, and they're going to start talking, and they're going to ask you questions as well. Like you people, man, I don't know. I think that's enough of the lack of mutual curiosity. Like, all right. Anyways, that was interesting. Until next time.